Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair. If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is so good to have you here. Welcome to the office. Welcome to the morning grind. It's going to be another good day. I see Zero the Blade here. Welcome, Nathaniel. Benj is here. Welcome, Nathaniel. Mike is here. Stargate Mind is here. Good morning. Yes, grab drinks, hit thumbs up. James is here. Good morning. I also see Thor coming in. Greetings. If you did not see last night was epic. Last night was epic. Brianna and Doug were both with me last night on Table Talk, and we took a deep dive into Snow White and also Maleficent. We went into the history of the story of Snow White, the meaning of the story of Snow White. We took a deep dive into Maleficent and how it changes things, analyzed it as an independent story, also how it went along with or did not go along with the themes of the 1959 Sleeping Beauty. We analyzed it quite a bit in terms of its feminist themes, as far as also, because it's often regarded as like an anti-feminist movie, but we said that this was something that was a very superficial analysis of that movie, especially the 1959 version of it. And that was kind of a, well, like I said, a superficial analysis of what Sleeping Beauty was, whereas actually, I think, a story about motherhood and the importance of not keeping your children sheltered. So we went deep into that show last night. So yeah, James says last night was fun. It was an epic stream. Sable Phoenix says you guys did some big time research for last night's show. Yeah, we went in deep and hard with that. Yeah, you really should, Nightmare. It's really amazing. So I am in that regard. I've been trying to think of different ways to handle YouTube, because sort of organically, part of Table Talk has definitely grown into story analysis, which I think is fantastic. You know, Brianna and Doug are both authors. So we're talking with people who are making things happen in the Geekverse. That is definitely what Brianna and Doug are doing. And that's definitely what they are doing. So having them on completely works with Table Talk. But what I want to do is I do want to go through and clip some of that shows, or a lot of the shows that I've done with Doug and Brianna on storytelling. But I'm not sure if the clips are right to put on this channel. So the clips, I think that the clips that need to come out here, you know, I've still been trying to figure out what it is that people like to watch on YouTube and how to make YouTube work and things like that. So I've got a lot of material I need to clip. I'm thinking about just starting another channel that's something like Heath's story analysis or something like that. You know, a channel that's just for the story analysis. And then when I do the clips, put the clips from the show over there on that channel. I wonder if people would find that. And then, like, if you saw clips from those, like, keep the live stream here on this channel, obviously, because it's got the comments that are going by live and things like that. But then I could put clips and things like that on another channel. I'm afraid that if I put too many clips of story analysis here, people may not like that. So I'm thinking that maybe the clips from that need to go on its own channel. And I also need to do more morning grind clipping. Heath's story time. Yeah, something like that. Or story time. Heath's story time, or yeah, something like that. Right. So that may be better, because I've gone back and forth a lot between trying to combine YouTube channels. Gee, my lips are just dry and cracked. I've been going back and forth between trying to combine YouTube channels and also separate YouTube channels, because if you do or YouTube itself. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what YouTube will like or will not like, because I've been going back and forth on that. At times I've been, I need to divide things. Now, my different stories need to be on different channels, I think. But I think taking another kind of one. Well, no, Andrew asks, does anybody know how YouTube features new channels? I mean, I really don't think they do. I don't think. I mean, who knows? I don't get too many newer channels and what YouTube recommends. I have no idea. I've also been thinking about, well, now maybe I've also been thinking, I was thinking especially yesterday, that maybe I do want to talk about some other topics related to science, technology, space, AI, and society and things like that. But this is definitely not the right place to do that. So if I were to do that, I would have to put that, I believe, on another channel as well. I've been meaning to reply on Discord, and I just haven't gotten to yet. Somebody asked me, or had mentioned that I've been saying that I've been extremely unproductive lately, and I have been extremely unproductive lately. I'm going to have to reestablish what my morning anchor is, because over the last about month, I've completely lost that. And asked me, do I consider like YouTube and stuff like that being productive? And generally, I do not. And that's because, like, my productivity, I generally consider writing. I mean, basically everything that is mostly valuable to me as far as getting done has to be done with writing. But it's very difficult, it seems like, for me to write, especially over the last month. Well, it was originally very difficult for me to write, whether that is the story writing or that's the RPG writing, when I am still trying to figure out how to really put what I'm doing here on a solid kind of footing. And of course, at the moment, it's not like YouTube is sustainable or anything like that. So I think that I would consider like the streaming and things like that more part of productivity, more productive if it were actually contributing to like a sustainable enterprise. So at the moment, YouTube is not a sustainable enterprise. If it were, then I think I would. So maybe in the future it would be. So I was trying to figure out how exactly I get something to some level of sustainability to be able to sort of move forward. And originally, of course, I started the YouTube streaming in order to give myself anchor points of the day, because when I had no anchor points in the day, well, I really wasn't able to work then either. So I did come up, bring up productivity, but then luckily, lately over about the last month, man, I'm just not getting it. Andrew says, I don't like how YouTube separates archived live videos from archived regular videos. I don't know whether it's better or not. I think that I was kind of for it in the sense that, okay, if you're looking for live, just the live stuff, there's a place that you can click over there on just the live now. Because for a while, I couldn't do this. For a while, YouTube was saying, or people were saying about YouTube, for a while, of course, YouTube highly promoted live streams. And I think that was when YouTube was mainly competing with Twitch. Well, Twitch was live, so YouTube was going to be live. So hey, if you're live streaming, then hey, we're gonna promote you with the algorithm. Now that I don't think Twitch is that big of a, as large of a initial competitor to YouTube as it was, that it seems like now YouTube is pushing the shorts, right? Because Twitch is the main competitor. So now YouTube wants shorts. But it used to be then that, okay, once YouTube stopped pushing the live streams as much, like, oh, you've got to take, there was a time when people were like, you got to take the live streams down from your channel or your channel's going to get penalized, and then move the re-upload the live streams to a separate, live stream archive channel. And I mean, there's only so much time to try to like download gigantic live streams, then re-upload. So I was hoping that when it started to move stuff over, I was hoping that it realized, that was YouTube starting to realize that, hey, people can have multiple types of material on one channel and not penalize that for you. So I don't know. So I'm thinking about, I've got to do more clips. I want to put some more clips on some of the discussions that we have had about different topics for gaming here. I think that the gaming, the tabletop, the RPG side of this is obviously a major anchor here on this side of the channel. I used to try to run a toy channel, but I realized I didn't have enough material for that. I mean, there's only so much stuff that I can do in a day. But I think if I'm making clips of something, then putting clips of the story stuff all together, because probably I could come up with, close to 100 clips or something like that about story analysis that could go over there. And it's probably better to go on because that's a different kind of subject than tabletop games and RPGs. And the tabletop RPGs are kind of a focus because eventually I'm going to be putting some out. So maybe it's better for this to sit over here. And then if I were talking about something about AI and society and stuff like that in general, I think that I would do that in the afternoons. Yes, GURPS. So today I do want to look at GURPS Mass Combat. We're going to be taking a look at GURPS Mass Combat today and seeing how GURPS does that, to try to contrast it with how Dungeons and Dragons does that. I have absolutely no idea, Andrew. During the recent Google layoffs, did it impact YouTube? I don't have any idea. Let's see. So that's what's going on. Still, one of the major things I've got to do is finish the interior of the Kickstarter page for Goodnight Sword, because I do want to get rocking and rolling with that as well. YouTube channels see you just seem crazy expensive to me, but I can see how they're chasing that model. So the NFL ticket pickup should be a good one for them, but in my opinion, the bundles they're offering are garbage. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. Where was I saying? Oh yeah, so I've got to get Goodnight Sword, the interior of that Kickstarter page, ready, because I want to rock and roll with that. In a little while, we're going to retake a look at all the different kinds of things that we're doing, because some of them I've decided that not to do, different shows and things like that. But on the other hand, we are up and running with some other shows. Friday night, we've got dinner and a board game again. So I'm going to be playing the second Barbarian Quest in the Barbarian Quest pack tomorrow. Not tomorrow night. This is Wednesday, but Friday night. So I do have that going on. But there's a lot that I want to do over the next year, assuming I can get productivity to some type of reasonable standard. And also some type of self-sustaining energy over here to be able to sit down and work with scripts and novels. Because when I'm sitting here, I'm always working at stuff in RPGs. I'm always like, oh man, I can write. I mean, I can write this kind of stuff. I get this kind of stuff coming in stories, analysis, and stuff like that. I want to be showing what can be done. And of course, there's also some travel and some other things to be done. Let's see. In the news, momentary stuff in the news here. Let me bring up this window. This was brought up to me, and I did see this. So this seems like exactly the kind of stuff that we should talk about. It seems like it seems like, as far as not just releases and stuff like that, because we're talking about stuff that's wait, actually, speaking of releases, before we get into something like that, I do want to bring up this right here. Let me bring this up. So just as a general point of news, yesterday, if you didn't know, Knave 2nd Edition just went up on Kickstarter. I was thinking yesterday as I was going on the morning grind, that isn't Knave supposed to be going on Kickstarter? And I think it must have actually gone live while we were live on the morning grind yesterday. So the Knave RPG is just going crazy over here. 5,000 people. So you probably already know it's launched. You probably already know, but Knave did launch. We looked at Knave, the Knave RPG rather extensively. Well, it's only 7 pages long, but it was about an hour-and-a-half show. So we looked at the original Knave RPG on the morning grind. In general, I liked it. Other people didn't, although I still had some problems with it. We talked about some of the issues that we had with that original incarnation, but Knave 2nd Edition just went live yesterday. So Knave 2nd Edition is live. It does have a preview. A free preview of the book is available right here. So if you go over here to DriveThruRPG, you can download it. And I did download this. So I'm thinking that soon we're going to take a look at the Knave Kickstarter preview, because we had taken a look at the Knave book itself. So that is something that is going on. And so be aware of that. So that was part of this. All right. But then also in the Ravenkeep Discord server, there is a news for the grind section. So let me put this. So if you see some kind of news or something that's going on, you can post that in the comments section. Or excuse me, you can post that in the news for the grind section. Doesn't mean necessarily that we're going to cover it, but that's a good place to kind of aggregate news, because I can't see, nobody sees everything that comes by. But here, this did come up right here. Hasbro removes artist signature from D&D movie poster. There are a couple of things about the D&D movie that had seemed odd. So this says Hasbro removes artist signature from D&D movie. Famous fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons artist Jeff Easley painted the promotional mini poster given out at early screenings of the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie. And it says, finally scored a copy of the giveaway print. They took my signature off the painting. Over a month after the giveaway was made available to fans, the artist obtained a copy of the mini poster. He noted that Hasbro erased his signature from the print. So it says right here, the update on the 30th, which this, when we're looking at news like this, okay, you mean, we know that just because it's in the news doesn't necessarily mean that what's being reported on is accurate. So we always have to take all of these things with a grain of salt. So that's another thing that I had thought about when I'm like, well, if we're covering kind of things, news-related topics, of course, there are releases and press releases or Kickstarters. So that's one thing. But when you're trying to figure out what's going on with something like this, the accuracy of any particular report, I mean, you always have to kind of, realize that it may be inaccurate, right? So there was an update here, and it says, update 30th April, Paramount Pictures handled distribution for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Paramount or their marketing partners may have directed the removal of Jeff Easley's signature. If so, the erasure is not specifically attributed to Hasbro, but instead this came from their partner with the D&D movie. So we really don't know, right? So at some point between the time when the artist submitted this painting here and then when it was actually released as this mini movie poster, his name was gone. So somebody made some type of somebody made that kind of executive decision. On April 28th, Jeff wrote in the Fans of the Art of Jeff Easley Facebook group that he acquired a copy of the print that was first released on March 29. He did not call out the delay in obtaining the copy of his work. Instead, the artist revealed the printed version of his painting had been edited to remove his stylized signature. Jeff Easley's Honor Among Thieves poster, along with the D20 popcorn bucket at AMC theaters, are among the best souvenirs associated with the movie. Taking the artist's name off the finished product robs him of the customary credit he deserved as the author of his work, which might be apropos for a movie that has thieves written in the title. Cropping an artist's signature out of an illustration can occur when the original image meets the layout artist. Now, certainly that's the case because you've got an original work of art, but yeah, by the time things sometimes go to layout, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens downstream that sometimes works of art have to be cropped. I mean, I'm aware of that as someone who has done that. You know, I don't know that I've ever actually cropped. I mean, I don't think I've ever done that, but I'm sure that I've had to crop images that somebody has done when it's being repurposed for something or used for something else or something like that. So yeah, I completely understand that. Yeah, if a work gets cropped, sometimes the crop that has to happen for a particular purpose may accidentally crop out the signature. But every artist working in publishing knows that cropping where the image is trimmed can occur. In this instance, Easley's signature was not cropped off, but digitally removed. The residue of the erasure is still visible beneath the E in Easley originally resided. Likely done by Hasbro or E1, but I'm not sure about that. You know, this says likely done, but then there was a correction up here, right? So we always have to be careful of all this. Somebody, however, the production company that filmed the D&D film, this change was unexpected and arguably needless, an alteration to the original work. So there we have it right here. So it's not cropped, but it's just removed. In this case, removing Jeff Easley's mark contrasts with the signature policy of some Hasbro subsidiaries. Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro a subsidiary that publishes the Dungeons & Dragons RPG as well as Magic the Gathering card game, does not remove artist signatures from the artwork they source. In fact, Easley provided artwork for the 2021 Magic the Gathering core set Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, as well as other card art over the years. His signature was left intact unless cropping was required. His artwork for the Den of the Bugbear Magic the Gathering card clearly shows his signature. Magic the Gathering goes further in celebrating the artist by listing their name at the bottom of each card. So let's see. It's notable that WotC's standard Magic the Gathering art policy clashes with Hasbro or E1's handling of the promotional poster. This incident may be attributed to differences of policies within different arms of Hasbro's corporate empire. At other times, this erasure may have flown under the radar were it not for Hasbro's recent history of troubling public incidents like sending the Pinkertons to a fan's house or the OGL crisis. Right, this just keeps stacking on top of stuff. Bank of America's scrutiny over their MTG prices and other heavy-handed decisions. Needlessly erasing Jeff's signature is thus another incident to add to Hasbro's list of ill-advised decisions thus far in 2023. Was the OGL crisis was just earlier this year? I was saying I think that last month just completely blew by. I'm not sure what happened to April with me, but man, we went through the OGL things only in January. What a year so far! Despite the fact the alteration of the printed artwork could be taken as an insult, Jeff Easley's reaction was professional and lighthearted. In the same thread where he announced his signature revelation, he stated that he found this more amusing than anything else. The creatives that work for Hasbro and similar companies cannot control and are not at fault for their management decisions. As with any of the difficulties he's experienced in his long career of working with corporate clients, Jeff Easley proves he's a class act. So update on May 1st. On Facebook, Jeff Easley shared his thoughts of the incident. His point of view and attitude are the hallmarks of professionalism. To be fair, none of the other promo art I saw was signed. None of the 50s and 60s poster arts ever got credit for their work. I would think my association with the early-ish TSR would be the only reason I got the job. Editor's note, both Egg and Gertie are keen to do the right thing and note that while Jeff called attention to certain reactions from fans would make life challenging for the artist. Please be considerate. So, yeah, I mean, who knows whether that was directed. We don't know who it was directed by. And this seems to be also a common theme with all of this, that we don't really know who is in charge of decision making, whether that was the OGL kinds of things, whether that was the Magic card Pinkerton situation or whether it, who made this call about removing the signature. We don't ever really know. Yeah, I still can't understand what they gain for that. It's Jeff Easley. His name adds a fair bit of weight. So, right. But so that kind of leads me to think that it might not have been. Well, if it were Hasbro might not know. It depends, if I don't know. Like, it depends on who commissioned that art. I mean, if it was specifically commissioned, I guess that it was. But then somebody might not know who he is and might not know that it actually adds weight to the image. I don't know. That's all I can, or that's one possible way for this to go. So we don't know. Maybe somebody didn't know who it was and thought that it was taking away from something, or some no-name guy or some guy trying to take credit or something like that. I don't know. We don't know, at least according to this article. So now, but I do have another question that I've seen reported, but I don't know whether this is true or not. That what is the situation with the movie credits and Gygax and Arneson? Because I didn't go see the movie. I wasn't planning on going to see the movie originally, but then and the OGL stuff happened anyway. But then, okay, the OGL stuff was kind of resolved, and I was up to see John Wick. It takes me about 45 minutes to drive up to a movie theater. I did go and see John Wick, and I was thinking while I was there, since I'm here, maybe I should go ahead and make it a double feature and go ahead and see Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I didn't because it was too late, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. I've been here for too long anyway, trying to watch John Wick. John Wick was a long movie, and by the time you sit through trailers and everything else, anyway, it takes even longer. So I just came home and I didn't watch Honor Among Thieves. But I had been seeing stuff about, I don't know who this is on Twitter, but did anybody who see it, could they confirm this? So, like, this person says that they didn't see it, but they're disappointed to hear from those who have, including Luke Gygax, that they did not credit the creators of D&D, Gary Gygax or Dave Arneson, nor do they credit Ed Greenwood, the creator of Forgotten Realms. Can anybody verify this? Like, did anybody see any of this who is in the chat who might be able to talk about what the situation is? Because some people have said, like, when you're looking at Reddit or something, I was trying to come up with a screen capture, like, because again, this is one of those situations that you just don't know what people, is it true? Like, if it were just not present, well, that's one thing. But if it said something about created, I've seen it reported saying that it was created by Hasbro, which that seems to be, okay, so Carl Make Stuff says Gygax and Arneson weren't credited. It says Dungeons and Dragons by WotC or Hasbro, I forget which. See, if it didn't say anything like that, that would be one thing. But, I always think of the other the Star Trek movies or the other Star Trek franchises. Now, I haven't watched some of the Star Trek series. I haven't watched some of the most recent ones. So I don't know how they do it. But, there's always the line on it that says, based on Star Trek, created by Gene Roddenberry. And to me, that's a big thing. Actually, I remember as a kid, like asking my mother when I was even watching the Star Trek original movies with Kirk. And it would say, based on Star Trek, created by Gene Roddenberry. And I was confused. I was like, based on Star Trek, created by Gene Roddenberry? This is Star Trek, created by Gene Roddenberry. But of course, that was actually a reference to the original Star Trek series, based on the original Star Trek series, created by Gene Roddenberry. So if there was no such credit on the movie, arguably there should have been. If there was a credit on the movie that said based on Dungeons and Dragons created by Hasbro, that seems like a huge problem. So this is true. So Stargate Mind says this is true. I watched it. Did the other D&D movies credit them? I don't know. See, that's also a fantastic question, Zero Theory. It was by Hasbro in the credits. Was this in the end credits or the beginning credits? Like, there's also a difference here. So it was credited to Hasbro in the end or in the beginning. Like, especially if in the beginning credits it was said something like created by Hasbro, that would be kind of great. So it stuck out to Sable Phoenix. So was that in the beginning credits or was it end credits? Greenwood wasn't credit, but seems real chill about it in public. Yeah. So see, my issue originally was that it didn't stand out to me. It didn't. The trailer did not stand out to me as Forgotten Realms. I wouldn't have said. Now, other people who are more intimately knowledgeable of the Forgotten Realms lore may have looked at that and gone, "Oh yeah, man, that's the Forgotten Realms." I played a lot in Forgotten Realms, but it didn't stand out to me in that way. But it seems like if it were Forgotten Realms, which I believe it were, that it seems like also Ed Greenwood, based on Dungeons and Dragons and by Gygax and Arneson, and Forgotten Realms by Ed Greenwood. I mean, it seems like I would have credited them. So credits are so long, I can see how that would be missed. Well, right. So that's also why I was wondering: is this a beginning credit issue or is it an end credit issue? Because I think that would be different. Like if the last thing, like the last thing you see on like the Star Trek The Next Generation, for instance, the last thing on the beginning credit before you actually go to the episode is based on Star Trek created by Gene Roddenberry, right? Created by Gene Roddenberry. So if like the last thing of the beginning credit were based on Dungeons and Dragons created by Hasbro, and then you went into the movie, that would be pretty weird. That would be pretty weird. So, okay, Sable Phoenix is saying end credits. So this is an end credit thing. Okay, so that's different. Because I was thinking, you would put something like, if you were going to put based on Dungeons and Dragons, you'd put Dungeons and Dragons created by Gygax and Arneson. You would put that on in the beginning credits. But I personally am big on creator credits. So Carl says, if anything, I think Greenwood had more rights to a credit in a movie set in the Forgotten Realms. Zero Theory says, look at the copyright issues with the theme music to Star Trek. There are lyrics to it, so it could be copyrighted. Okay, I don't know anything about that. Okay, so Mike Hansford says, did, and Gygax had so this is did, I believe, referencing that it did credit them and that Gygax had a cameo in the first one. Interesting. So Neutromancer says definitely references locations and more came from the Forgotten Realms. Well, it may, but like if you go to, for instance, I don't know, I didn't see the movie, but like if you're going to Waterdeep and things like that, people would know. All right. Well, okay. So both of those things involved credits, so I thought that I would put them together. I suppose in both cases we don't know, right? In both cases we don't know who was actually responsible in those cases. Like, did Hasbro, like what kind of credit information did Hasbro pass on for the movie credits? We don't know. What type of influence did Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast, in neither of those cases, have on what was produced for the movie poster? We don't know. But I guess it's one of those things, another one of these things that's just not a great look. Okay, let me stop screen sharing over there and let me bring up Mass Combat, because we were going to take a look at GURPS Mass Combat. I wanted to look at something that wasn't about to be an immediate dive into a whole bunch of other, like a massive week and a half review effort. So here are the mass combat rules for GURPS. Oh, Carl says Hasbro owns E1. Okay, see, I don't know anything about that shop. Hasbro owns E1 though, so they definitely had a call in the credits. So that's interesting. I didn't know that. Andrew says, doesn't Hasbro have a duty to review this stuff? It has their name on it. Do they have a duty to review it? I mean, probably not. You might expect them to, but on the other hand, I mean, who knows? All right, let's take a let's sip. Let's see. Got your drink ready? Got your favorite drink ready? Before we go into this, let's breathe and sip. Let's take 2 deep breaths. Deep breaths, complete exhales, 2 deep breaths, complete exhales, and then let's take a sip of our favorite beverage this morning. So here we go. Deep breaths. Much better. Much better this morning. All right. So I wanted to take a look at GURPS Mass Combat because we had just been through the D&D Cyclopedia, which, by the way, was a 9-day long effort to get through the rules encyclopedia. And we didn't look at every bit of it, but we sure took a big chunk of it. And if you've gotten here and you're really interested in the beginning of role playing and where we kind of came from in role playing, what exactly old school role playing is, like, I came from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, so I mean that's kind of old school in some regard, but on the other hand, a lot of these old school Renaissance games want to go back even further than that. And I really wasn't familiar with Dungeons and Dragons prior to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, so it was great for me to understand what it was, what we've gained, what stayed the same, what we've lost. We talked about all of that. So if you missed some of those, I highly recommend checking out some of the Rules Encyclopedia episodes. But part of the stuff that has sort of been taken out of Dungeons and Dragons as we've gone is that the running the whole world, mass combat, running a domain, and there was clearly a lot of that. In fact, one of the funniest episodes was one of the episodes where we went through all of the siege rules in that book. We were laughing because of the level of detail and simulation and stuff like that. Let's see. So because of that, I was like, well, GURPS has mass combat rules. Let's see what the GURPS mass combat rules are, and let's get into it. So it says, there will be war. Hordes of orcs, Axis invaders, star beasts of Jupiter. Sooner or later, your campaign is likely to encounter battles too large to resolve with ordinary GURPS combat. The answer, GURPS mass combat. This powerful abstract system lets you resolve land, sea, and air battles at any tech level with just a few die rolls. Features include rules for logistics, movement, and reconnaissance, and many other things that matter to a military force even when the enemy is in sight. Integral treatment of air superiority, amphibious assaults, airborne troops, sieges, and everything else that's important when the enemy is in sight. Round-by-round resolution that puts the commander in control of dozens to tens of thousands of warriors, lets him choose his strategies, and then instantly shows him the results of his skill and cunning. Equal attention is paid to the aftermath of a battle, pursuit, casualties, looting, recovering losses, and more. GURPS Mass Combat provides extensive examples, quick reference tables, and ready-to-go stats for the strength, weaponry, and mobility of the units involved. It's all generic, too, covering traditional, fantastic, and super science troops at every tech level and providing guidelines for customizing their quality, special training, and equipment. And it never loses sight of the fact that GURPS is a role-playing game. Every hero gets a chance to shine, and the rules emphasize what the PCs do and what happens to them. So this requires basic set GURPS 4th edition. So that's what we are looking at here. Let's see. Yeah, this is 4th edition. This is 4th edition. But does GURPS have a table of terms for ladies of negligible virtue? Oh, no, negotiable. Ladies of negligible virtue. A lady of negotiable virtue. I don't think so. At least it's not negligible. Yes. No, no. Okay, so wait a minute. Are two Steve Jackson? So this is Steve Jackson. Yeah, Steve Jackson Games. There's the co-founder of GW was also named Steve Jackson. This does not have to do with this. Steve Jackson does not have to do with Games Workshop, as far as I know. So we've got introduction here. So what is our table of contents then? Introduction, elements and forces, elements from tech level 0 to tech level 5, elements from tech level 6 to 12, fighting, and then Appendix A, sample forces, the Earth military force. This is the GURPS fantasy right here. And then a modern military force. And then Appendix B is tables, features and quality, travel speed, reconnaissance, relative, troop strength. I think that's TS is troop strength, and so forth. And then the index. Okay, so how does this want to do this? Yeah, so that's what I thought. I thought there were two separate ones. Yeah, I wish they would make things like that easier. Neutromancer. Vehicles, I remember vehicles being a book that everybody always loved from 3rd edition. Has it even been replaced for 5th edition? I mean, 4th edition? 4th edition's been out for a while. Okay, so the basics. Each side in a battle consists of a number of elements, each of which is trained and equipped to fight in a particular fashion. Each element has a troop strength that reflects its size, type, and quality. For the purposes of resolving a battle, all elements of this side are combined into a single force with a TS equal to the sum of its elements TSs. I'm expecting for this mass combat system to be more elegant than the Dungeons and Dragons system that we just went through. So this is probably going to be more modern, but it's going to also, I think, be kind of in the simulationist vein. So I would definitely say the rules cyclopedia rules for this were definitely in sort of the simulationist vein. So this should also be somewhat simulationist, but also I think, although detailed, more modern and more streamlined than what was in the rules encyclopedia or rules cyclopedia. The force has an overall commander. If the GM wants to fight lower level battles, or if part of the force is detached, it may be divided into smaller forces, subordinate commands under subordinate commanders. Battles are resolved using a series of quick contests modified by the capabilities of the forces involved. These contests determine whether or not a surprise occurs, who's winning the battle, and how many casualties were taken. At each stage, the commanders get to make tactical choices that modify how their forces perform. While force commanders make most of the decisions, PCs who are assisting with others and assisting or otherwise participating in the battle also have a few choices to make. And if they get lucky, those may influence the battle's outcome. This procedure lets the GM reduce a long battle to a few dice rolls. That's because this is not a war game, but a role-playing aid. What an element represents. An element is the basic building block of a force. It may represent a file or squad of soldiers on foot, nominally 10 men, but possibly any number up to about 15 men. For tech level 0 to 5 armies, it's easiest to think in terms of tens of men. For higher tech army, it works better to regard elements as squads. A similar sized lance or troop of about 10 riders and their mounts. A single vehicle and its crew. A heavy weapon or artillery piece and its crew, plus the draft animals for horse artillery. So we are still getting pretty granular. I mean, in that rules encyclopedia, we were tracking the individual number of soldiers that we have. So we are kind of scaling up here, but only really to the squad level or to the level of an entire, artillery piece and its crew. So elements make up the fighting force. This rule treats rear area supply forces differently and with greater abstraction. See the logistical force on pages 13 and 14. Elements belonging to a regular military organization may be grouped into permanent units, companies, regiments, battalions, cohorts, brigades, fleets, legions, corps, armies, and so on, as appropriate to the period and culture. In game terms, this means creating several smaller forces, the units, and then totaling their statistics as a single force before a campaign or a battle. Existing unit distinctions play no roles in the rules, which deal strictly with elements and forces, but often determine what elements of a particular force commander has under his control. For instance, an NPC major might tell a PC captain, "Captain, I want you to take your 7th Roanoke Rifles, the captain's battalion-sized unit, 16 elements, Battery A of the 2nd Artillery, another 4 elements. Grams irregulars, 3 elements commanded by another PC, representing a force of local partisans. And that nut with the balloon, another single element, and capture Elk's crossing. Questions? In game terms, the individual elements that make up the rifles, the attached battery A, the local partisans, and that nut with the balloon, a PC inventor treated as a hero element, constitute the captain's force. However, since they're existing units, the GM already has their elements worked out, so it's just a matter of adding up their statistics. Let's see. Okay. Building up and maintaining your force. As previously mentioned, the rules distinguish between the fighting force, combat troops, and the logistic force, rear area support. When they refer simply to the force, that means the fighting force. That's the kind of force described here. Rules for establishing and operating a logistics force comes later, as the attendant complications are only relevant to lengthy operations in which the PCs are in charge of supply as well as battlefield command. Mini glossary here. Okay, TS is troop weight. WT is transport weight, an abstract measure of how bulky and massive an element is. Some elements are too large to transport. Element types. Elements are the building blocks of fighting forces, soldiers, crewed vehicles, or weapon teams. Each element type has a name and is rated for troop strength, special class, transport weight, mobility, cost to raise and cost to maintain, and troop level. Descriptions of specific elements, such as heavy cavalry or light cavalry, appear in chapters 2 and 3, along with stats in tabular format. So, for instance, here we have a light infantry element. TS is troop strength 2. Class, I believe that's probably reconnaissance. Oh, yeah, special element is recon. Transport weight is 1. Mobility type is foot. And cost for each squad size element of 10 men is $40,000, $40,000 to raise and $8,000 to maintain per month. This element is used from tech level 1. GURPS, as a generic universal game, has tech levels that divide everything from the Stone Age up to super science sci-fi. Actually, I think super science is technically an additional classification to go on other tech levels, but all the way up to very advanced sci-fi. You can customize stock elements by selecting the following details: features, special features added to tailor the element, quality, the quality of the troops and their equipment. If you customize an element, adjust its TS, costs, and possibly other characteristics based on your decisions, as described in the associated rules. For example, suppose we take the bare bones light infantry element, add the airborne neutralize 3I. I don't know what that is. And night features, and then upgrade quality with both fine equipment and elite troops. The result is a more interesting element that we name Airborne Ninja. Use the following format for customized element records. So, for instance, we might have Airborne Ninjas from Tech Level 4, a light infantry element. These are stealthy spies and assassins equipped with hang glider kites to drop out of the sky from dragons or airboats, and armed with melee weapons and gunpowder bombs. Each element is 10 ninja. So TS6, weight 1, classes recon, mobility foot, quality fine equipment, elite troops, airborne, neutralize C3I, night, cost, that makes them 186,000 to raise and 24.4K to maintain. In the above example, Airborne Ninja is the new name we assigned to the modified light infantry element. Light infantry is the base element, which we can keep track of in case we want to make later upgrades, and so forth. When we are building out the force, decide how many instances of the element the force incorporates. Multiply TS, weight, raise, and maintain by the number of elements. For example, 5 elements of Airborne Ninja have a TS of 30, weight, troop weight of 5, transport weight of 5, cost $930,000 to raise and $122,000 per month to maintain. James says, nut with a balloon should be a prestige class. I think it ends up, it does end up breaking all of this down to dice rolls. Kind of like the same way in that sense, it is kind of like the rules cyclopedia, because the rules cyclopedia did all of this stuff with, deciding what was in the force, but then did ultimately have, okay, we need all these modifiers, and it comes down to a dice roll. Good morning, Robert. Neutromancer, GURPS can have a lot of math. Now, at some point, do I have this over here on this list over here someplace? We're going to get into GURPS space. Oh, yeah, over here. We're going to get into GURPS. Yeah, it's on this list over here. GURPS space is one of the most detailed books out there. Now, we thought that the Rules Cyclopedia got detailed. Running a space campaign in GURPS, we're going to go through that. When I feel like going into another multi-day, extremely detailed analysis of a book, you can learn how to actually navigate starships by reading GURPS space. Okay, some elements have troop strengths in parentheses. Parenthetical support. Some elements have troop strengths in parentheses. For example, TS parentheses 20. This indicates a support TS. It means the element's full TS can never be used when calculating special class superiority, never when determining the TS ratio. Support TS designates troops that can perform a particular tactical role, such as artillery, bombardment, or anti-aircraft fire, as indicated by class, but that lack the ability to close with and destroy the enemy and thus win the battle on their own. We also have special classes. Many elements belong to one or more special classes. For instance, light infantry and the airborne ninja we just based them on belong to the recon class. Other elements belong to no special class at all. This is the default for medium and heavily armed infantry armed with melee weapons. A force that has TS superiority in a particular class, that is, it has special class superiority, may enjoy an advantage in certain battles and the lead up to them. For instance, a force receives recon superiority if it has a 2-to-1 or better advantage in TS of elements from the recon class. This provides an advantage in detecting and surprising the enemy. So here are looks like our special classes. Air combat. This element is capable of air combat operations. Air combat is treated abstractly. The rules make no explicit distinction between air-to-air and air-to-surface capability. Armor. These are land elements with sufficiently heavy protection to ignore the attacks from most ordinary opponents. Armor elements usually have sufficient offensive power to defeat rival elements of this class, but armor class is not primarily about firepower. Far more important is the ability to ignore ordinary melee weapons, small arms fire, and artillery fragments. Examples include tanks and other well-protected armored fighting vehicles and giant monsters. Artillery. This represents batteries of large caliber, heavy weapons employed often against areas than point targets. It can also be used for supers or mages capable of large area effects. Beam weapons aren't usually classified as artillery unless they fire super science beams that pass through solid objects. Cavalry, fast-striking land elements that have much greater speed than normal humans, than a normal man. Oh my God, we have reference to a normal man again. These cavalry has a much greater speed than a normal man when on foot, which allows them to charge, pursue, and outflank the enemy. Horse cavalry relating to light tanks, jeeps with machine guns, and packs of wolves. Their advantages are limited in bad terrain or during a siege. Okay, so C3I, Command, Control, Communications, and Intelligence. I did not know that acronym. So that's Command, Control, Communications, and Intelligence. This element enhances the commander's situational awareness through specialized intelligence gathering, information warfare, and/or long-range surveillance capabilities of a higher order than those of recon elements. Examples include airborne early warning aircraft, surveillance networks, spy satellites, and psychics or oracles. High-tech headquarters command posts may also qualify as C3I elements. At tech level 0 to 5, most forces have no C3I elements, barring supernatural assistance. An army, like a serpent, travels on its belly. Frederick the Great of Prussia. Engineering elements for siege warfare, bridging obstacles, breaching or erecting barriers, fire. So these are land elements capable of providing direct battlefield firepower at greater range than that of a pistol or thrown javelin, but with less range or effect than artillery. The class encompasses bowmen, musketeers, riflemen, and so on. Tanks beyond this class as well as to this armor. Tanks belonging to this class as well as to the armor class if they're equipped with anti-personnel weapons. Tanks belong to this class as well as to the armor class if they're equipped with anti-personnel weapons such as machine guns. Naval, so mermaids, sea monsters, warships, hovercraft, patrol boats. Water elements not designed for sustained naval combat, such as a small torpedo boat and mine layer, do not belong to this class. They instead belong to the classed neutralizing naval. Naval also doesn't count anything whose amphibious capability is restricted to swimming or crossing small rivers and streams. So recon, we saw that one. That's a class for patrolling, raiding, and scouting operations. Infantry normally belong to this class if they operate in skirmish formation, like ancient light infantry or modern riflemen, rather than en masse. Transport elements move other elements. A number followed by the T is the maximum transport weight it can carry. For example, T2 indicates a transport that can handle 2 weight 1 elements or a single weight 2 element. Transport weight. I like that. James says, hey, I'm pretty sure it's a proper name. A normal man. Somebody needs to write up that stat block. Oh, no. Neutral man says, but it's faster than Florida man. Tactics win battles, Sable Phoenix says. Logistics win war. He's got a brother, A. Hugh Man. So transport weight is about its bulk. We saw that. Mobility is how an element moves. So mobility versus an element that has 0 mobility cannot be moved unless transported by another element. Mobility versus class. It's quite possible for an element to belong to an air, combat, or naval special class without having any form of air or water mobility, such as a tethered balloon. Land mobility, our options are foot, which includes not only infantry, but also slow draft animals and large lumbering beasts. Mechanized, elements that use powered tracks. Motorized, elements that using regular powered wheel, which gives high road speeds but inferior off-road capability. And then mounted, elements that move quickly over ground under muscle power, notably horsemen and other four-legged or swift runners. Water mobility, we have 2 options. Coast, elements that travel by water but lack the provisions, endurance, and stability and are sized for extended sea voyages, as well as sea, elements for sustained seakeeping ability or blue water ocean operations. Air mobility, fast air and slow air. Fast air capable of extended high-speed flight like a modern airplane. Slow air elements capable of only short-range flight like a dragon or a helicopter. So we've got the costs, raise and maintain. So these values are measured in dollars, but in practice, especially at low TLs, many commanders pay part or all of this expense by conscripting civilians, appropriating mounts and vehicles, foraging, pillaging, and looting. So cost to raise. This is paid just once. However, when replacing casualties, find the replacement cost by multiplying the raise of the percentage of the casualties that need to be replaced. This is the cost to maintain is the cost of the elements to supply the element with supplies, food, and pay for the month, either in the field or during realistic training. Optional features. Okay, so what is this? These modifications give elements special traits, usually but not always upgrades. The GM decides which option exists in a particular setting given its genre, TN, and so forth. Multiple justifications are often possible. For example, Night could represent high-tech sensors and navigational gear, along with the training to use them, or recruiting from races that have night vision or other extended senses. or even cinematic martial artists' abilities for fighting in the dark. So we've got a customization cost. Well, so like hovercraft is plus 80% to raise and maintain. Marine is plus 20% to raise and maintain. So our special optional features include such as airborne, plus 20% to raise and maintain. This is a feature for land mobility elements. It means they are equipped and trained for and equipped for parachute, glider, or helicopter assaults. To use this capability, the element must be carried by a transport element with air mobility. The GM may allow airborne elements that also have the sealed feature on page 10 to deploy from orbit, representing space marines with re-entry capsules, ablated gliders, etc. All weather. This feature is only available to elements with air or water mobility, or that also have the airborne feature. In bad weather, air or water elements without this feature contribute half TS to battle, while airborne elements without this feature lose the use of airborne feature. Disloyal, so this could be a penalty. Elements are composed of troops who, regardless of quality, are reluctant to serve and hostile to the force commander, like unhappy conscripts, unpaid mercenaries, or slaves. Fanatic, however, the element is so devoted to the cause or leader that it's willing to sacrifice everything for its victory, possibly including their lives, their commander, and other elements. As long as it's a fanatical element that is fighting for its cause, it counts as impetuous. In addition, if a force is at least 10% fanatic elements by percentage of total elements, or TS, its commander must make a successful leadership roll at -1 per 10% fanatics to choose full retreat or parley. If he fails, fanatic leaders will attempt to dispose or assassinate him. Fanatics are raised as if they had above average troop quality, but at a reduced cost. Flagship, if a force has naval elements, one naval element that transports the force commander may be designated as a flagship or command ship of a small battle at no cost. It counts as a C3I element in naval or amphibious battles only. Hero. Okay, so this was like our nut with a balloon hero element, right? Exactly. Sounds like a nut with a balloon. The element is an individual or small group, a party of PCs with a far more capability than numbers would otherwise indicate, usually due to vastly superior attributes or skills, exotic advantages, special equipment, magic, or the GM's favor. Hero elements may have any desired multiple to TS. This doesn't affect cost unless the GM wishes it to. Mercenary heroes may, of course, charge more for their services. The GM should take into account the fact that each element represents a squad, a vehicle, or its crew, or heavy weapon. An individual PC built as a 150-point warrior might be as effective as an actual squad of elite quality troops. In that case, the hero element would have identical stats to the usual squad, differing only that it consists of one person instead of 10. On the other hand, an element that represents an entire squad-sized party of 200-point special operators may be as effective as 4 or 5 elite squads. The GM should also feel free to add or remove special classes, mobility types, or other features for hero elements. If the hero is more than human or otherwise enhanced already, add super soldier, page 10. If a hero who's ostensibly a rifleman can fly like a speeding bullet, add fast air mobility. If he can shoot gamma ray laser beams from his eyes, add fire or possibly neutralize armor class. And so on. Hovercraft, okay. Given to either coastal or mobilized mobility. The aircraft element functions if it has whatever coastal or mobilized mobility would be most advantageous in the scenario. In addition, it treats desert and swampland terrain as open terrain. Impetuous. So impetuous elements are eager to charge the enemy with or without orders. This feature is characteristic of clan or tribal warriors, knights, fierce monsters, and similar elements. If a force contains at least 10% impetuous elements by percentage or total TS, the force commander gets +1 on his first round strategy roll only if he chooses attack, all-out attack, or raid, as the element's elan inspires the rest of the forces. If he chooses the other option, he must try a leadership role at -1. Failure means he gets -2 to strategy instead. Levy, these are troops that have an obligation to serve. They aren't raised and paid for by their commander, but they are supported instead by their own leaders and communities. For examples include local militias, feudal and city levies, and civilian transports pressed into service. So that's different than we had up here, disloyal. So disloyal is different from levy. Marine, this feature is for land mobile ability elements. It means the element is trained and equipped for amphibious assaults on beaches, defended rivers, etc. It gets full TS during amphibious assaults instead of having its TS halved. To use this capability, the effect must be carried by a transport element with water mobility. Mercenary. So mercenaries are existing troops. Therefore, the cost of the commander or government is hiring them. It's hiring them nothing to raise. Wait, what? Oh, but they are more expensive over the long term. So you don't have to raise them because they're existing. You just have to pay them month to month. They exist. They're more expensive over the long term, though, because they aim to make a profit. The cost to hire a mercenary element is normally 1.5 times the cost to maintain that kind of element. Mercenaries hired at lengthy contracts, a year or more, may be available at lower rates, typically 1.25% times the maintenance cost. The GM decides, though, what mercenaries are available. Remember that while their current employer didn't pay the cost to raise them, somebody did. Thus, the GM, not the PC commander, decides how NPC-led mercenaries behave. Neutralize elements that have been given the ability to neutralize a particular special class. Neutralize artillery, neutralize C3I for assassins or missiles that home in on radio emissions. Neutralize naval or neutralize recon. Adding neutralize armor, air, cavalry, or fire is not recommended. These abilities should be fundamental to elements of all types. So here we have night operation element, nocturnal. There's no cost for this optional feature, but it's normally innate to an element rather than something that can be added. The element treats night as if it were day and vice versa. This is common for fantasy elements that hate or fear sunlight, such as certain orcs, trolls, and undead. A nocturnal element that buys the night element, then called day, has no penalty. Sealed, the element can operate in environments that are otherwise completely hostile, unbreathable atmospheres, or a vacuum. This isn't the same as gas protection. All TL6+ elements are assumed to have that at no extra cost. Super Soldier, plus 200%. These elements have power abilities over and above what's normal for a base type of its tech level. For instance, a Super Soldier might represent an infantry element made up of combat androids or vampires. Terrain, you have specific advantages in terrain. James says, in all seriousness, I really like the crunch that GURPS brings to the table. I do too, in general. I've been a huge GURPS fan for a long, long time. And I've said before that I wish that GURPS, you can tell this is also kind of a toolkit because for whatever type of game that you're running. And there are certain people who are willing to go through this to create something for a game, and there are other people who are not. So I wish that GURPS were more open about letting other people use it, because there's a lot that, a lot of optional rules. There's a lot of variability in GURPS. You can play very detailed GURPS games, but you also don't have to add in all of the detail. You can stay at a higher level. There's the basic combat. There's more advanced levels combat. There's all of that. So I wish it were more open so that if you're somebody who does actually want to dig into it, let somebody really dig into it and then create, a world book that invokes the right type of feel for that world, goes ahead and uses all of this material to sort everything out and provide that to somebody who wants to run the game, and then also simplify it for the players as well. Don't look through all of this. We're playing in a tech level 4 fantasy campaign or whatever it is that we are. So we don't have to go through all of the, sci-fi tech level 8 and stuff like that. I wish that they did that, but I guess they just never are. If they're fundamental, wouldn't it be the most crucial to attempt to neutralize them? Yeah, but I guess they're saying they're so fundamental they're difficult to neutralize. Maybe, I guess is what they're saying. Stargate Mind says the writing is better than in D&D, much more clarity. And so, yeah, we do have a great flexibility here. But like I said, the existing books are more like for people who want to create campaign worlds and campaigns than they are for immediate play. Now, some people, certainly everybody immediately plays with them, but you'd have so many more players if people could create their own GURPS sanctioned rule books. Unliving troops, features that may include elements made up of robots, golems, or other constructs, or spirits or undead. Buy these troops as if they were ordinary, but they're likely to have such features as sealed and super soldier. While they rarely desire pay and have no mothers to weep for them, they often require special effort to create, build, or maintain, so purchase and operating costs tend to even out. Troop quality determines how well these warriors are programmed or how easy they are to command. Mindless automatons with no initiative tend to be of inferior or average quality, while ruthless superintelligences are elite. Robots are usually easier to build but harder to maintain in the field. This might not be true for extremely advanced machines, though, in which case there may be little game difference between humans and robots. Quality is rated in 2 steps: equipment quality and troop quality. Leave ordinary quality troops unchanged. They require no particular notation. So we do have equipment quality. This represents the availability, construction, reliability, or so of gear. At tech level 0 to 4, it represents absolute equipment quality. It's the difference between one tech level 3 human infantry element being outfitted with spear, cheap short sword, shield, padded jacket, and leather cap, basic equipment, and another whose men have a spear and a thrusting broadsword, who are all clad neck to toe in mail, fine equipment. At higher tech levels, quality is relative to the tech level and type of equipment. So let's see here. Say that again. So at tech level 0 to 4, it represents absolute equipment quality. Okay, at tech level 1 to 4, it represents absolute equipment quality. It's the difference between one guy with a spear, cheap sword, shield, padded jacket, and a leather helmet versus this guy with a spear, thrusting broadsword, and who's clad head to toe in mail, fine equipment. At higher tech levels, quality is relative to the tech level and type of equipment. Thus, especially at low tech levels, equipment quality primarily represents the lavishness and construction of weapons and armor. However, it might cover anything from the quality of a soldier's boots or horse to the availability of satellite navigation and electronic warfare systems, whatever is significant for the tech level. For vehicle elements such as tanks and aircraft, it represents the vehicle's reliability, maneuverability, weaponry, protection, electronics, etc. Equipment levels are very fine, costly, state-of-the-art equipment, usually reserved by rich states or by less wealthy military forces for picked units. This can represent the personal equipment of warrior nobility and their immediate bodyguard. In peacetime, there may be complaints that the treasury can't afford this. Fine, expensive, up-to-date equipment, or sometimes good quality gear upgraded by practical, battle-tested, field-expedient means and add-ons. It also represents gear that's a bit too state-of-the-art with bugs that need fixing. Good, above-average equipment. The soldiers won't complain too much and may even believe that when they're told they have the best kit possible until they run into an opponent who's been issued fine or very fine gear. Basic, enough gear to get the job done. Even the least educated soldier or civilian knows there's better stuff out there and hopes the men don't run into it. A lot of cheap quality technology may be used. Basic gear is common for mass conscript armies, militia, and well-equipped insurgents. Poor, less than the minimum expected at the tech level, seriously outdated, vulnerable, improvised, unreliable, or obsolete. This can also represent early prototypes. This gear isn't any easier to maintain than basic equipment, but it is cheaper. So few fighting forces have uniform standards of gear. The tech level 5 Royal Guard heavy cavalry might have fine equipment, while the tech level 5 line infantry may do with basic gear. And the native auxiliaries, horse archers, may be only tech level 3, but equipped with fine kit for their tech level. So equipment quality table. So quality, very fine, fine, good, basic, poor. This is our TS modifier, our troop strength modifier. So good is actually plus 50% strength, troop strength modifier. Fine is plus 100%, 150% for very fine. Basic is no change. Poor is negative 25%. We also have a cost to raise and a cost to maintain over here. Whereas troop quality, so this is different. Remember, we've got equipment quality and we've got troop quality. Troop quality is an abstract rating of an element's fighting skill, training, cohesion, discipline, and morale. Quality levels are elite, picked forces seasoned by high proportion of combat veterans. Examples are special operators, elite guard units, and troops ranged from childhood as full-time soldiers. This category can also include special, heroic, or fierce creatures. Good, long-service professional soldiers are troops from warrior backgrounds that emphasize early and realistic combat training. Average, the mass of ordinary soldiers. Inferior, soldiers in a military force that does little realistic training or has limited combat experience. The troops might be on average be good, courageous fighters as individuals, but as a group they function as below average levels, and their technical standards for the maintenance of gear are often bad. This encompasses police or parade ground armies mostly designed for prestige and oppressing the public. The populace. Units of well-trained but unenthusiastic conscripts and enthusiastic but very inexperienced troops. So here is our troop quality table. High-quality troops are more to raise, primarily due to better training, and to maintain, owing to better or more regular pay and rations, as well as the expense of frequent training maneuvers relative to sitting in barracks. While above-average troops demand a lot more effort to raise than do ordinary troops, they don't cost that much more to keep. Replacing losses, which is based on cost to raise, is expensive, however. So we've got elite, good, average, and inferior. And we've got the troop strength modifier as well as a modifier to raise and maintain. So raising a force, how do we do that? James says, I like that tech level stratifies at higher levels. It's elegant. So raising a force involves recruiting or reassigning personnel, retraining them, and acquiring new equipment. Cost to raise elements of various types are given in chapters 2 to 3. These may be modified by quality and optional features. The GM decides what troops are available. Those role-playing military leaders will usually want to raise the best troops they can given their budget. Time to raise a force. Raising a force takes time. We must keep accurate time records. Right, Sable Phoenix? The minimum amount of time to raise an individual element is determined by its cost, as shown in chapters 2 to 3. For every $10,000 the element costs to raise, as given by its raise statistics, it takes 1 week to recruit, build, and train, with a minimum of 10 days regardless of cost. Multiple elements can be raised simultaneously, however. An element can be raised in 75% of that time by spending twice as much to raise it. It can be raised in 50% of that time, minimum 5 days, by spending 4 times as much. The GM should modify these rules to suit the nature of the element. For instance, he might allow a necromancer to raise an element of zombies off a corpse-littered battlefield in a matter of days if the mage has the necessary skills and energy. So let's see. A GM may opt to split a budget between a war chest of initial funds on hand and a smaller revenue that arrives on a regular basis. Revenue might be monthly but is likely to be seasonal or annual based on state budget, harvest time, or taxes. So this is the logistical force here. By the way, for all the grief that D&D gets, Stargate Mind says, the History Channel put their documentary on ancient torture devices last night on YouTube. Oh, I might have to check that out. Yeah, Neutromancer says, also, tech levels aren't always uniform across all categories of a civilization. That's true. You can have a civilization that is a higher tech in, one area like medicine than they are in another. So they might have very high quality medicine, so they have higher quality tech level medicine, but not in other things. So they talk about that when they actually talk about creating something like classic Star Trek, because classic Star Trek has high-tech level as far as physics and engineering is concerned, like mechanical engineering, because they can go faster than light. They have tractor beams. They can do all kinds of really high-tech like physics things. There's also sometimes the super science tag on those things, but they are not very far advanced in things like biotechnology. Like Dr. McCoy on board the Enterprise doesn't have access to a lot of high-tech biotechnology stuff, and even computers are kind of behind. So yeah, you can play with that in order to even within a single civilization. So the logistical force. Military forces are followed by a tail of support personnel, an ancient army's camp followers, mules and baggage train, a modern army's fuel and ammunition trucks, supply centers, and rear echelon troops, and so forth. The naval and air forces, much of this tail is left in port or in air bases, but it still exists and must be accounted for. So we've got air, land, and naval here. Statistics for logistical troops. Logistical strength, LS, the maximum total cost to maintain of combat troops that this logistical troops can support, expressed in thousands of dollars. This represents delivering supplies, performing maintenance, and other rear area services such as medical and cooking. Don't count the cost to maintain the logistic troops themselves in this figure. Cost to raise, cost to maintain. The cost to support the logistic force. This is 10% of the cost to raise that force. It doesn't count against LS. Logistical troops are assumed to have sufficient capability to support themselves first, with the excess supporting the fighting troops. Logistical troops. Air logistics can support all elements. Need not accompany the fighting force, but must be based in an air base. Their LS can be divided among multiple fighting forces. Land logistics can support elements on land, provided the clear line of supply can be tracked back to a home base. They must accompany a specific fighting force. Naval logistics can support naval elements and land elements at a port, and can also support elements on land if paired with equal strength of land logistics. Need not accompany the fighting force, but must be based in a port. Their LS can be divided among multiple fighting forces. Logistical forces may be rated for their personnel, as part of their description, but that doesn't have a direct rules effect. It may be a major role-playing effect. We'll convert 2,000 logistic troops to infantry. For example, our forces have a total cost to maintain of 5,500 K, which is $5.5 million. Their supply lines run over land and water. They require a land LS of 5,500 and a naval LS of 5,500 to support them. The land LS must be with the force. The naval LS might be represent some or all of the LS available from a naval base. The force's land logistics would cost 5K times 5,500, 27,500K to raise, and 10% of that, or 2,750,000 to maintain. Its naval logistics would cost 5,000 times 500 times 2, or 55,000K to raise and 5,500K to maintain. So an army may travel on its stomach, but won't go very far if you don't pay it. The rules provide costs for feeding, paying, and replacing troops. An element must be maintained for each month to stay functional. First, work out the total cost to maintain both the fighting force and the logistical force. The force's quartermaster, whoever's in charge of logistics, and then make an administration roll for his force with the following results. So we got critical success, success, failure, and so forth. So this is the effect on costs. Allocate the funds. It's possible to pay less than the required amount to maintain a fighting force. This may involve skimping on pay, deferring necessary maintenance, providing substandard food or housing, or other economies. For simplicity, there are two levels of reduced maintenance. Low readiness. This represents troops who are receiving only limited allotment of pay and other supplies. Half their cost to maintain, but also half their TS. The TS reduction lasts for 1 month after full maintenance resumes, as the troops get back up to full performance. Or no maintenance. If the element isn't maintained at all, it experiences all of the above effects on TS. In addition, it suffers 5% casualties, representing breakdowns and desertions. For record-keeping purposes, it's generally easier to maintain the entire force at the same readiness level. So super healing and force replacement, note here. A force with access to such things as magic, super science, or advanced nanotechnology for healing casualties might be able to do so much faster than indicated by force replacements below. Oh, so force replacements below. The GM can simplify this by simply as an additional free budget per time period that's applicable only to replacements outside of the normal logistics rules. For instance, a heroic fantasy cleric with divine healing powers might provide the equivalent of $10,000 for force replacements per day, or 100,000K per 10 days, or 300K per month. If the super healers remain behind the lines, don't represent them with elements. They're part of the logistical force. If, on the other hand, the GM could assign this particular ability to the hero or a C3I element. Arctic, desert, jungle, mountain, swampland, and woodlands impose extra logistical challenges for land elements. For troops who spend all or most of the month operating in such terrain, multiply the cost to maintain by 2, or 1.5 for woodlands, unless the force remains tied to an existent transportation network, road, rail, canal, etc., that bypasses the terrain, which gives a penalty to any pre-battle recon rolls. Elements with the appropriate terrain feature reduce these multipliers by 0.5. No extra cost for woodlands or 1.5 cost elsewhere. So force replacements. Replacing casualties use the rules for raising a force. Multiply cost and time by percentage of the force being replaced. For example, replacing 10% of a force or an element calls for 10% of the cost and time required to raise it. Force replacements and casualties are simpler to track if both losses and replacements are handled for the entire force in a single unit. So campaign season is the quarter of the year immediately before and after harvest time. On Earth, it's typically late summer through early autumn. At tech level 0 to 5, land and air elements of tech level 0 to 5 land and air logistic forces cost only half as much to maintain during campaigning season as they can easily forage for food. A thrifty leader can conserve resources by demobilizing during the winter and spring months and fighting when the harvest is out. Note that this only applies in rural areas, never in desolate wastelands. Moreover, not all societies or worlds have a campaigning season, although there may be some other local equivalent. Let's take a look at disbanding elements, and then I guess this will go on to another day. I thought this was actually a smaller book than this, so we'll continue with this for another day. An element may be disbanded, whether to save the cost of maintaining it or for other reasons. By treaty, the vanquished kingdom must disband half of its army and all of the royal guard. If an element is disbanded on campaign, the enemy or disputed territory, the owner receives no rebate. Assume the equipment is abandoned or absconded with while personnel scatter. If the element is carefully disbanded in an organized fashion in friendly territory, the owner may receive a rebate of 20% of its cost to raise. To get this, the element must spend at least 2 months demobilizing, and the area must have the capability to buy or repurpose the element's equipment and or personnel. The rebate represents material that's sold or reused and troops that are retrained and assigned to other activities. For flavor, an element may be converted rather than disbanded. The owner of a light cavalry element could convert it into a heavy tank element by disbanding the old element and putting 20% rebate toward raising the new one. The new element may have the same name, Second Troop, Royal Dragoons, but it will have different statistics. The fact that a percentage of its personnel are the same, albeit significantly retrained for new duties, is covered by the rebate given for disbanding the original element. We have, it's always easy to begin a war, but very difficult to stop one, since its beginning and end are not under the control of the same man. Anyone, even a coward, can commence a war, but it can be brought to the end only by the consent of the victors. So we'll go into chapter 2, which are basically going to describe our elements in tech level 0 to 5 forces. Fantastical elements. We've got fantasy element in here as well. Elements of tech level 6 to 12. Naval elements. Aerospace elements. And then chapter 4 is actually fighting and campaigning. So how this actually plays out. Because we did get it basically talking about raising and maintaining and logistics and stuff like that. So how we actually use this to conduct a battle in our RPG, we are still going to get to. All right. It does sound easier to run than the Rules Cyclopedia was. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I did. Like I said, GURPS is one of my favorites. So we will continue there. So this is Wednesday. I don't think I'm streaming anything tonight. I've got to catch up on so much stuff. So tomorrow night, I did invite someone on for tomorrow night, but we will have to see whether or not we're going to have a table talk tomorrow night. But nonetheless, Friday night, starting at 6:30, we will be here playing Hero Quest. But nonetheless, we'll be here tomorrow again for more on the GURPS Mass Combat. So everybody, stay productive, stay creative, and grind on.